It's good to have you guys on here. I'm so excited to discuss. Seriously, it has to be my favorite topic when it comes to writing a novel, and that is suspense. Want to get started? By way of introduction, my name is Jennifer Jenkins. I'm the author of several published novels. My seventh novel releases next in March 2021. And I'm especially excited about this guy. Teen Writer's Guide, Your Roadmap to Writing is a book that it was kind of a passion project of mine. I started a nonprofit with some good friends about just a little over 10 years ago and have been working to help foster young writers ever since. And this is kind of the culmination of all of my best writing tips. I will be borrowing a little bit from the fuel that keeps things moving chapter in here that discusses tension and suspense. So maybe this little chat that we're going to have today will give you a preview of some of my best tips that I have in the Teen Writer's Guide. So without any further ado, I want to jump right in. Now, I have this little happy birthday balloon. It's you gotta use red too, right? Because it's Halloween and it symbolizes scary things like it and other clownish nightmare terrors. So I have this red balloon. And if I were to blow up this balloon just a little bit and I popped this balloon, what would that be scary to anybody? Would anybody be really that worried? The sound wouldn't really make us jump. The anticipation is not very great at all because I mean it took me just a second, just like that, to blow up this balloon. Today I want to talk to you about why sometimes when we write novels, our readers feel the same way. They feel like it really, this is a nice story. There's some cool characters and wow, that's a clever concept for a plot. But they don't really go, wow, that was amazing. And they don't find themselves throughout the story kind of gripping the edge of their seats and realizing that, wow, I need a massage after reading that book because I was just so tense the whole time. Yes, we want to create that visceral reaction in our reader. So how do we do it? How do we conquer the big scary monster that is creating suspense? So I want to discuss creating that tension in the balloon, and really getting our readers to the point where they can chase. And what you're going to find is that true suspense and tension really correlates directly with how much our readers care about that happily ever after, how much they care about the resolution. So how do we create that? How do we create that emotional connection with the reader? So I'm going to give you 4 tips. I like lists. If you've ever taken a class from me, you're going to you know this. I love lists. I love to organize things that way because it helps me not forget anything important. And look at that. I'm out of order already. Here we go. Sorry. So here's my first tip on creating suspense and tension and making our reader anticipate a happily ever after that really means something. Create wish characters. That is my first tip. So what is a wish character? Yes, I got a little acronym together for you because they help me. These mnemonic devices really help me remember. A wish character is somebody who wants something. They have to want something because what they want equals their motivation. A character has to be motivated or what they do doesn't matter, right? We all know this. Our character needs to be interesting. Our character not only has to want something, but they have to be an interesting, unique, cool, clever character. What makes a character interesting? Well, there's a lot of ways. one of my favorite is knowing the character stereotype and then intentionally breaking that stereotype. What this does is it creates a sense of unpredictability in your character, something that makes your character, makes your reader go, huh, I wasn't expecting that. One of the classic stories that I love to tell as an example of breaking stereotype is we have a football player. This is this great muscle bound, jock that is really nice and really handsome. And he's playing in the homecoming game. And he throws that touchdown pass and scores. And, they win the homecoming game. They cart it off on the shoulders of his teammates to go to the locker room, and then they go to the homecoming dance, and he's crowned homecoming king. Pretty run of the mill story, right? Very stereotypical of a jock, for example. But what if we have the same character, same setup, um, Hail Mary pass to win the game. Our quarterback is carried off on the shoulders of his teammates, hits the showers, and when everybody else goes to the homecoming dance, he actually sneaks into the city to do some slam poetry. All of a sudden we go, I wasn't expecting that. That character just shocked me and grabbed my attention, and now I am curious about what he or she will do next. That is the element of unpredictability that makes our character interesting. Okay? What is the S in our wish characters? We need our characters to be susceptible. That's a big word. We can handle it though. We're authors, so we can handle that. A susceptible character is a character who has flaws, but not just like, oh, I'm just not really good at art. That's not a good convincing flaw unless that's like pivotal to the plot, right? A susceptible character is a vulnerable character. They are somebody who we as the reader know, as we're following this character's story, we know and understand that they actually have some weaknesses that, if exploited well, the enemy or the antagonist of the story can really use. We know that losing is possible, I guess is another way of saying that. So often I've read so many stories where we set up these really cool characters that have all of these abilities and are just so awesome in every way, but and so the fact that they conquer all in the end is not really that shocking. And so that's the point. That's the idea of having a susceptible character, a vulnerable character, is it creates suspense. Our H is we need high stakes. There needs to be something to lose, and it has to be a pretty big deal. If the worst thing that can happen if our character fails is that they go home, they go back to their normal life, and they just fail. That's not really great high stakes. That's going to not create a lot of tension for your story. So we need to have high stakes, high consequences if our characters fail. So that's the starting point, is our characters. Once we have character nailed down, the rest of it will come pretty organically. But let's go into our second step of building suspense in your characters. So we have our wish characters. Second, we are going to make our reader work for our backstory, for our character's backstory. We want to be really, really careful in how we give away our character's secrets. Nobody enjoys or appreciates a car chase that lasts 10 seconds, right? So we're going to be very careful about providing payoff to our reader by holding on to backstory. We're going to use it like we are generals fighting an army, and we have to exercise an intense amount of strategy to defeat our enemy, which is our reader. Okay, in this instance, we love readers. We love readers, but we want to make them work. Otherwise, just as with anything in life, the payoff will not be satisfying. So like I said, breaking stereotype is a good way of making our readers curious. But how else can we make a reader curious? How can we make them do the work in the reading process instead of telling them everything, telling them how they're supposed to feel during a scene? And this works beyond backstory, even the way we set up from scene to scene, the way we describe elements that the characters experiences, senses, whether they see, hear, smell, taste, feel, any of the setting. How do we describe it? Are we describing it in such a way that sets mood and has our readers anticipating that emotion? For example, in film, filmmakers do this very well, and I would argue that it's a little easier, right? I mean, they use music and film score to set up a scene so that we know by whether, Vivaldi's Spring is playing in the background, or some scary, intense, like heartbeat driving music can set a mood for a story or a setting immediately. We know we're being shown that this is going to be a happy scene or this is going to be a sad scene. How do we do that in writing? That's another way to create suspense. We make our reader work for for that emotion. We don't tell them Veronica was so sad. We show the things that she notices as she's walking through that dark parking garage. She's not going to notice the cute blinking lights of that Volkswagen Beetle. She's going to notice the dead and decaying, apple core on the ground, or she might notice her car that is as trashed as her heart is at that moment. Those are different ways that we can make our reader work in a scene. We if we do all the work for them, then they're not going to feel like there's any suspense, and they won't ever be proven right or wrong in a story. They will always be just told, and so there's no interaction, no involvement on the reader's part, which really leaves for a flat story and saps all tension and suspense from the story. Another way that we're going to add and foster suspense in a story is by foreshadowing. And we're going to foreshadow with plot twists and with red herrings. Um, this makes the actual payoff moments of your story, which I'll talk about payoff moments in a second. It's going to make the climactic moments in your story really mean something if we foreshadow them. Uh, and how do we foreshadow? Well, a plot twist. First of all, let's talk about plot twists. Um, a plot twist has to be something that is unexpected, but also has our reader kind of nodding their head, going, "Oh, that's awesome! Yes, I get it. How clever!" And not going, "What?" I think a good example of foreshadowing is actually Harry Potter 3, The Prisoner of Azkaban. We have our character Hermione Granger, who throughout the book has been using a time turner device. And if you're not familiar with that, then go and read Harry Potter 3 because you really should. But all fairness, a time turner is a device that if you spin the time turner once, it will set back time for an hour. And J.K. Rowling sets us up well. We know from the beginning of the story, once they reach Hogwarts, that Hermione is. We know that she's taking two classes that exist at the same time, and Ron and Harry bring it up, and she kind of brushes them off, and it's never really explained, and until later on in the story, when that time turner is going to be used as a way to solve the main conflict of the story, where Harry Potter has to be in two places at once. So the reason why this works, often what happens is people will add a plot twist that is so shocking and has not been foreshadowed, and what that does is it makes the resolution to the conflict seem too convenient. Like, oh, there's a magic pill that turns them into a frog, and then they hop over to the moat and rescue the mermaid. I don't know. Obviously, I just made that up. But it that magic pill was never foreshadowed. We don't really know anything behind about the magic behind that magic pill. I should never just throw out examples off the cuff, and I do it all the time, and I regret it almost every time. Sorry for that, but you get where I'm going with that. We don't want our resolution to be too convenient, and so foreshadowing is a great way of doing that. Let's talk about red herrings too. The red herring is one of my favorite literary devices. It's basically um, setting up your reader to assume that there could be multiple solutions to a problem or multiple bad guys in the situation if it's like a whodunit novel. Um, we want our reader to assume several things, and we want them to feel like we want them to have enough foreshadowing that the actual resolution is satisfying to them. Even if they make a prediction about your book and they're right, that's okay. It's just that there has to be a few other options on the table so that your reader isn't going, well, this is dumb in chapter 4 when there's a whole book to read and they already know how the story is going to be solved. Surprise your reader. I think Jennifer Nelson, she taught a class about kind of getting to the end of the story and finishing. And one of the best bits of advice that she gave that I really, really love, and I implement it in my own writing frequently, like today I did. Whenever I get to a point in my plot where I'm like, okay, this is obviously what's going to happen next, I stop and I go, wait a second. Is there something else I can do that would be better? And I force myself, even if I like my idea, if it feels really obvious, I force myself to brainstorm at least 5 ideas, 5 ways that I could have whatever needs to happen happen. And usually it's not the first or the second or the third, but it's usually like the fourth or the fifth idea that I go, oh my gosh, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So really challenging those ideas and being creative will help kind of create some twists that maybe you hadn't thought of before, and help you get creative on ways that you can foreshadow. Like I said, using plot twists and red herrings are great ways to do that, but just making sure that there's enough evidence to support your solution so that your reader is going, yeah, that was sweet. Okay. My last point is I you should know and understand the difference between building moments and payoff moments. So, what is a building moment and what is a payoff moment? These are not terms that like I looked up and found in some, encyclopedia or dictionary or something like that. These are actually terms that I've just come to use for my own writing as well, because I found that in my study of tension and suspense, that understanding what a building moment and a payoff moment really just makes all the difference in the world. I wanted to know where does suspense and where does tension really live? Like where does it hang out? What are the most tense moments or suspenseful moments in a story? So let's say we have a character that is standing on the edge of a cliff, and we don't need to go into why they are on the edge of this cliff. We just need to know that the cliff is there and the character is there and this is a dangerous jump. And let's say that our character, we foreshadowed that our character is afraid of heights, and that's a really big problem for our character. In fact, I'm using some plot points from um, my latest, not latest, but a book I wrote called To Kill a Curse. So I have this character who is about to jump off this cliff, and we foreshadowed the fact that she is terrified of heights. We know that if she doesn't jump, something bad will happen. And I won't give that away. We know that she wants this more than anything else. Do you notice I'm going back to my wish characters? We know that the stakes are high. We know that if she does jump, there's a good chance that she will not survive the fall too. Okay, I'm repeating myself, but you get where I'm going. So we've set this up. We've foreshadowed this moment, and suspense lives right as her toes curl and her knees bend and her arms swing back, and she has one last thought of, I hope I don't die, or whatever that thought is. Um, and she just says, and she just goes for it. But the suspense doesn't live while she's in the air. Suspense is the moments right before she jumps. That's where the heart of your suspense lives. So throughout our story, when we write, whether you realize it or not, you are writing building moments and payoff moments. For this scene, our building moments are everything that I just described. It is it is the moments, the thoughts, that lead into the physical actions that lead into the jump, which is a payoff moment. But we do this all throughout our stories. We have building moments if we know that there's a battle coming. Our characters that are training for that battle, maybe using a bow and arrow, and they're terrible at it, and so they're practicing and practicing, and they struggle to with whatever task they're trying to do. Another example of building moments are courting or dating, leading up to like that first kiss, which would be considered a payoff. We have to decide what are the payoffs that I'm going to be giving my reader. And whether it's our main character or a secondary character, those payoffs have to exist in every single chapter of the book. You're obviously going to find that you have major peaks in your story. And that's a discussion for another day if we want to talk plotting. But we're obviously going to have some spikes in our story as we get to our midpoint and our climax, our break into the third act. Those are going to be peak moments in our story, but building moments and payoff moments happen within each chapter. The question is, whatever the payoff is in that chapter, have we effectively built to that moment? Nobody likes a kissing scene that you've been waiting for 16 chapters that goes like this and it's over. And it can be a peck, but in the writing itself, there had better be a lot of build up to that moment, because that's the moment that tension lives in. That's where tension hangs out. So another example of that, let's say we have a story of um, a cute couple. They love each other. It's kind of a star-crossed love where their families don't agree with their decision, and they decide that they're going to elope. Well, this girl also has a beau, somebody that's been courting her, that is, she's kind of turned them down. And he decides that if I can't have her, no one does. No one can. And what happens is they sneak away to this meadow. And we see, and that's all set up. We're building to a peak, to our payoff. So just before, from the moment that our villain finds them at the meadow and he's waiting for them and he sees them, we slow time down here. We actually draw it out and we see little details. I mean, think of hummingbird wings, guys. Little details that are going to really squeeze the life out of this story and make it so satisfying for the reader, because the reader's earned it up to this point. We're going to milk that moment as much as we can, that moment just before our character is going to jump off the cliff, and because that's where suspense lives. That's where it hangs out, right? So the kid, it doesn't really matter. Like, I think it was Alfred Hitchcock. Yes, Alfred Hitchcock said, "There is no terror in a bang, just the anticipation of that." And so, in that meadow scene, obviously, the anticipation of our villain maybe shooting one of our heroine. Once the gun is fired, all of the tension goes. It's done. The deed is done. But building up to that is where it's really sweet. So we want to expand, we want to slow down time, and really milk it for all it's worth. So that is it. That is all I have for you today. We're going to remember to create wish characters, characters that want something, that are interesting, that are susceptible, that have high stakes. We're going to make our readers work for backstory. We're going to be really careful and slow with our backstory. Hang on to those secrets. Sprinkle them like breadcrumbs, Hansel and Gretel's breadcrumbs, because we want our reader to chase after our story. We're going to keep our characters interesting because we're not going to know all of their backstory from the beginning. We're going to foreshadow major plot twists, and we're also going to provide some red herrings. And then lastly, we're going to know the difference between building moments and payoff moments and really stretch out those building moments so that our readers are satisfied and can live in that suspenseful moment for as long as possible. So thanks for joining me. I know that there's just a few of you on here right now. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask before we end our live? We had the good fortune of filming during the presidential debate, so I know that many of you that see this will actually be seeing it later. So, Marilyn, I knew reading was a workout. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if reading was a workout? Like truly. Some books make me work for it, that's for sure. All right, guys. Well, I am going to turn this off and say thank you so much for joining me, and have a good one. Oh, and pick up my book, Teen Writer's Guide. I was supposed to, oh, don't leave. I was supposed to say something. I am the worst. There is a link that you will see on this video. I'm the worst. I'm so sorry. So for the next 48 hours, Teen Writer's Guide is actually $5 off. But you definitely want to get that discount. You'll need to order through the link in the video, and also those who order through that link will get a free magnet and bookmark. And the magnets are my favorite. They are a lot of fun. I actually have one here that I can go and grab, but maybe I won't. Just trust me, they're really cool. There are a few questions. So are all types of tension similar? Romantic tension versus scary tension. This is a good question. And actually, had we had a lot longer to talk, I'd love to talk about romantic tension, and building tension in not just our setting, not just our world building, not just our character, but in our relationships. The biggest difference between, oh, and there's the link. The biggest difference between action, which action does not equal suspense, by the way. But the difference between that type of suspense versus tension within relationships is in our relationships, it's all about the wall that separates our characters. So often when we write a love story, for example, I have so many people ask me, like, how can I make my romance novel suspenseful? The real trick is your romance novel can only be, or the romance within your story can only be as tense or as suspenseful as the wall separating your two main characters. So for example, if the thing separating, character A from character B is like a silly misunderstanding, all that would solve that problem is a simple conversation. Clearly, that's not a very strong, there's not a lot of suspense or tension in that story, because we as the reader can easily see the solution. I know that Twilight gets a lot of grief, but one of the reasons why I think it sold as well as it did was because of the wall separating our main characters. We have Edward and Bella, and what is the wall separating them? Well, it's the fact that Edward is extremely tempted by Bella's blood, and he wants to kill her. That is the wall. It's a pretty good wall. Other classic romance stories like Romeo and Juliet, Two Houses Divided. We have unrequited love between Marius and Eponine, for example, from Les Miserables. Those are other good examples of a strong wall that separates the character. There needs to be a good reason why those two can't be together in the end. And the greater that reason, the more interesting, exciting, intense the romance. Um, Excellent, excellent. And then I think that is it. You guys, thank you so much. If you ever want to ask me a writing question or just want to, I don't know, hang out with me online, find me at authorjenniferjenkins.com on Instagram. And I think it's Jennifer and what is my Facebook? It is um, author Jennifer Jenkins. Holy cow, that was really tough. I panicked, okay? Don't judge me. You can find me on my website at authorjenniferjenkins.com. And thanks again, you guys. It was good to see you.
Subscribe to our channel so you'll never miss an upload, or join us live every Thursday for author interviews, book clubs, writing advice, and more on Facebook at Owl Hollow Press, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. See you Thursday.